All the characters in the story are adults. Winter break arrived, and I returned home from university for 2 weeks. However, I found the experience unfulfilling. All my friends from school went on trips out of state, including my ex. The winter holidays arrived, and I returned home from university for a 2-week break. However, I found myself unaccompanied and at a loss during this period. All my school friends had traveled out of state for the holidays, and my ex-school friend Jenny had embarked on a skiing trip with her new boyfriend. Consequently, I was left in my hometown, in close proximity to my family, by myself. My father, a professor at a local college, had decided to stay on campus to conduct his test checks. My sister Taylor had departed for the holidays with her boyfriend, leaving me and the young man alone at home. Unfortunately, he was left in the care of his ailing mother. My mother is a very vocal woman, often even deafening, and is accustomed to issuing loud directives. My sister Taylor left home with her boyfriend, and my father stayed on campus to do his test checks. I was left alone in my home with my family. My mother is a very loud woman. She is also quite large. If you have seen Katie on American Housewife or Mike and Molly, you know what I mean. Unfortunately, my mother was very ill with the flu. She was lying in her bedroom from time to time. She grabbed napkins, making noises like an African elephant trumpeting through its nose. She drank gallons of orange juice. She remained in a vague state due to the flu medications that made her sleepy and even floating in the clouds. She was able to muster the strength and time to command me, "Oliver, I implore you to refrain from taking vacations. I would appreciate your assistance with the following tasks: turning on the dishwasher, operating the vacuum cleaner, and removing yourself from the couch. I would also appreciate it if you could put on your socks." As I'm sure you're aware, my mother had a point about feet. She disliked dirty socks and, at the same time, walking around the house barefoot. Since I was the only one in the family who ran around the rooms barefoot or in dirty socks, I was the usual target of her nagging. I appreciate your understanding. I expressed my discontent and retired to my room. I waited until she fell asleep, then closed my bedroom door to play video games in peace. This morning on my way to campus, my father gave me some small pills. He said to give them to my mother, otherwise, she would be spinning and tossing from side to side all night. I agreed, looking skeptically at the pills in my palm. Now I also have to look after my sick mother. What kind of vacation is this? 00 a.m. I proceeded to the parents' bedroom, located on the second floor, by walking down the hallway and knocking on the door. Upon opening the door, I entered the room and immediately noticed the strong scent of menthol, which seemed to fill the entire room. My mother appeared somewhat disheveled, her dark brown hair was tousled, and her nightgown was. At 12 a.m., I proceeded to my parents' bedroom, located on the second floor of the residence. Upon reaching the door, I heard my mother's disgruntled voice from within. I proceeded to open the door and entered the room. Instantly, the potent scent of menthol enveloped me, pervasive in the entire space. My mother's appearance was significantly altered. Her dark brown hair was disheveled, and her nightgown was askew. The only item she had on was her nails, which were always well manicured and sharp. "Mom, Dad gave me these pills to help me sleep," I stated, holding them out for her to see. "Give them to me, Oliver," she insisted, reaching for a pill and swallowing it, followed by a sip of orange juice. I directed my attention to the bedside table, which was covered with various items. I looked at the bedside table, which was covered with empty pieces of foil from various medications. The whole bedroom now looked like a disaster zone, which was surprising because my mother was usually obsessed with neatness and cleanliness. While I was looking around, I heard my mother's prolonged snoring. The advertisement did not lie: these drugs. The pieces of foil from the various medications were strewn across the bedroom, creating a disorganized mess. This was quite an unexpected change, given my mother's usual meticulous attention to cleanliness. Shortly thereafter, I heard my mother's prolonged snoring. The effectiveness of the medication was immediately apparent. I looked at my mother, who was sprawled on the bed and unusually quiet. I tried to cover her with the blanket. I sat on the edge of her bed, breathing gently, and feeling my heart beating rapidly. I listened to my mother's deep breathing and occasional coughing. I knew that my mother loved soap, perfume, and various. The procedure was completed swiftly. I observed my mother, who was finally unusually quiet, and attempted to cover her with the blanket. I sat on the edge of her bed, breathing gently, and felt my heart beating rapidly in my chest. I listened to my mother's deep breathing and occasional coughing. I knew that my mother preferred soap, perfume, and various exotic body washes, which was why she smelled much nicer than Jenny or other girls I knew at school who used perfumes with heavy, pungent scents that only hid their natural moisture. I could not endure it any longer. I decided to take advantage of the situation and make love to my mother. I breathed out again. Mom, she was confused. I'm sure she was stunned. The exotic body wash was clearly effective. Her scent was much nicer than before. Jenny and the other girls I knew at school who used perfumes with heavy, pungent scents only hid their natural moisture. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to take advantage of the situation and make love. How nice, Mom, I breathed out. Mom was confused. She was stunned. Mom, you're confused, I said. She shook her head on the pillow, her expression changing to a puzzled one. Finally, her eyelashes flew open. She opened her eyes and looked straight at me, but it took her a few moments to focus and realize reality. Oliver, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing in front of her, she muttered in. She appeared perplexed. Mom, are you all right? She shook her head in a state of confusion. Her expression shifted to one of puzzlement. After a few moments, her eyelashes fluttered, and she opened her eyes and looked at me. It took her a few moments to comprehend the situation. She muttered in a state of amazement. It's okay, go to sleep. I tried to whisper soothingly. Oliver, there was a realization in Mom's eyes. Oh my God, Oliver, you can't do this. What are you doing now? Of course, Mom has finally woken up. She smiled, but of course, Oliver, don't you dare tell your father what happened. I hope you understand. Of course, Mom, I'm not sure if I still. I was perplexed, but I composed myself and said, it's all right, go to sleep. I attempted to soothe him with a whisper. Mom's eyes revealed a realization. Oh my God, Oliver, you can't do this. What are you doing now? Of course, Mom, you have finally woken up. I smiled, but of course, Oliver, don't you dare tell your father what happened. I hope you understand. Of course, Mom, I'm not sure if I still have this flu or a fever. I don't even know. It's all so much like a dream. Oliver, are you sure we really did this? Yes, Mom, and it was just fantastic. Stay in bed and try to fall asleep. I'll bring you more medicine, meds, and juice in a couple of hours. See you later, son. She waved her hand lazily when I left. Mom smiled contentedly again and stretched like a big, while I inquired about her well-being, asking if she was experiencing any flu-like symptoms or fever. She expressed uncertainty, suggesting it might have been a dream. I confirmed our actions, and she replied in the affirmative. I suggested she remain in bed and attempt to fall asleep. I promised to bring more medication and juice in a couple of hours. I departed, saying, see you later, son. Mom smiled contentedly again and stretched like a well-fed cat that had just had a hearty lunch. Fortunately, she wasn't crying. I sat next to her, and I couldn't find the words. I had nothing to apologize for, and it was clearly inappropriate to confess my love now. Mom, everything okay? I need to take a shower. She got out of bed and left the room. Emotions were raging in. I fed the cat that had just had a hearty lunch. Fortunately, she wasn't crying. I sat next to her and found myself at a loss for words. I had nothing to apologize for, and it was clearly inappropriate to confess my love now. Mom, everything okay? I need to take a shower. She got out of bed and left the room. I was overwhelmed with emotions, but I understood that now I needed to let my mother calm down and come to her senses. I felt responsible for what had happened and worried that my mother might feel used and abandoned. A few minutes later, I went into her room. I went to the edge of the bed. Mom, we're fine. I understood that now was not the time for introspection. I needed to let my mother calm down and regain her composure. I felt responsible for what had happened and worried that my mother might feel used and abandoned. A few minutes later, I went into her room. I went to the edge of the bed. "Mom, I'm fine. I really don't want you to suffer. I'm very glad that all this happened. It's okay. I need to be alone now." My soul felt better. The guilt receded, but the flurry of emotions from the realization of everything that happened did not let me sleep for a long time. My morning came closer to lunch today. I probably needed to plan I would like to express my gratitude for the events that transpired, as they have provided me with a deeper understanding of my mother's perspective. However, I am currently experiencing a period of adjustment as I process the emotions triggered by these revelations. I recognize the need to manage my behavior in response to these emotions, though I am still working on analyzing the situation fully. I did not encounter my mother on my way to the bathroom, but the sounds in the kitchen indicated that she was present. The cool water was a welcome respite. I took a moment to reflect on my appearance in the mirror and gathered my courage before stepping out. I proceeded to the kitchen, where my mother was preparing breakfast. She was making a cup of coffee and heating up something on the stove. Unlike my mother, I am not fond of coffee, and its aroma is quite enough for me in the morning. However, for my mother, it is an obligatory element without which no morning begins. "How are you feeling?" my mother asked, not distracted from cooking. "I'm doing well, but it might be a good idea to take a walk and get some fresh air," I replied, taking a seat at the table. "I wouldn't mind either. The weather seems warm today." It was challenging to maintain the conversation. The TV, our source of comfort, was on in the background. We went outside and walked to the nearest park. The fresh air helped dispel the tension. I replied that I would appreciate a walk and some fresh air. The weather appeared warm, and it was challenging to maintain the conversation. The television was on, but it was our salvation. We went outside and walked to the nearest park. The fresh air alleviated my concerns. She looked at me and smiled. Later, we went to a cafe, and in the late afternoon, we went home. We were tired but satisfied. We returned home and each went about his business. I was sitting at the computer, and my hands, which had not yet recovered from the frost, were moving sluggishly, but one thought occupied my mind. I was preoccupied with thoughts about my mother. She had called me to drink tea, and I felt a renewed sense of excitement and desire. We sat on the sofa and drank tea with honey and lemon while watching a show. After we finished the tea, I felt the hot liquid pouring over my body. I found myself repeatedly thinking about the incident. My mother called me to drink tea, and I felt a renewed sense of excitement and anticipation. We sat on the sofa and drank tea with honey and lemon while watching a show. After we finished, the hot, delicious tea was pouring over my body. My mother gathered the dishes and headed to the kitchen. Earlier, I had taken my new mug to the kitchen myself. My mother had broken my favorite mug, which she had won a few years ago at a school competition. I had ordered a new one. "Will you wash your own?" my mother said, smiling, as she stood at the sink and rinsed. Mom gathered the dishes and went to the kitchen. I took my new mug to the kitchen earlier. My mother broke my favorite mug, which she won at a school competition a few years ago. I ordered a new one. "Will you wash your own?" Mom said, smiling, standing at the sink and rinsing the dishes. "Of course you won't get enough mugs," I jokingly replied and went to the sink. A loud knock on the door sharply brought me back to reality. The knock repeated. It felt like I was caught in the act. Who could it be? Probably it's the neighbors. We called them yesterday. We agreed that they would come in. I inquired about the availability of mugs, given the guests' tendency to overindulge. Subsequently, I was interrupted by a loud knock on the door. I realized I had been momentarily distracted and returned to the present moment. The knocking continued. I speculated that it was likely the neighbors, whom we had contacted the day before and had arranged to visit. The evening mother apologized, explaining that she had been in the hallway. She inquired about the purpose of the knocking, indicating that it was her who had rung the bell and not opened the door. She had thought she was asleep and had decided to knock. A neighbor's voice was heard. They confirmed that they were in the kitchen washing the dishes and had not heard the television. The mother explained, "I apologize, But I was worried about something, so I went into the hallway. "What are you doing? You rang the bell, but you didn't open it. You thought you were asleep. You decided to knock." A neighbor's voice was heard. "Yes, we were in the kitchen. We washed the dishes. We didn't hear the TV. The batteries probably need to be changed." I put on my best appearance and went to the guests. They are pleasant enough people, but I didn't want to spend the second evening in a row in their company, and I especially didn't want to get drunk. For decency's sake, I sat for half an hour in their company, but their topics weren't very interesting. I concluded that the situation required modification. I made an effort to organize my appearance and proceeded to the guests' residence. They were cordial individuals, yet I had no inclination to spend a second consecutive evening in their company. I felt no desire to consume alcohol. For the sake of propriety, I remained in their company for half an hour, but their subjects did not align with my interests. Consequently, I departed and retired to my room, immersing myself in the virtual world. The game progressed, and I remained unaware of the passage of time. I removed my headphones and listened intently. The neighbors' laughter emanated from behind the wall. It appeared that they were still present. I continued to allocate time. I continued to spend time on the internet. Time passed, and at some point, I heard voices moving in the direction of the exit. At this moment, my heart rate began to gradually accelerate. I heard the sound of the front door closing. I had never been fond of that sound, but I was unsure how to return and resume what I had started. I sit in silence and semi-darkness, attempting to formulate a plan of action. Although it makes sense to devise a strategy, I must go to her and act on the situation. I go to the kitchen. Mom went there. I walk in, and she meets my gaze, then takes me aside. "How did you sit?" she asks. "Not bad," Mom replies, smiling slightly. In a state of relative silence and subdued lighting, I find myself attempting to formulate a response. However, it is logical to conclude that the situation warrants immediate action. I proceed to the kitchen, and my mother follows me. We engage in a brief moment of eye contact, after which she guides me to the side. "How did you sit?" she inquires, her tone a mixture of curiosity and teasing. While simultaneously rinsing the dishes, she never neglects to ensure they are fully clean. However, today is an exception. "Why is that?" she asks in a hushed tone. We simply cherish each other deeply, and our relationship is of our exclusive concern. If both of us desire this, there is no reason to hesitate. There is no other woman in the world. Rinsing the dishes, she stated that she never leaves it dirty at night, but today will be an exception. "Why do we need this?" she asked in a hushed tone. "We just love each other very much, and what is between us concerns only us. If we both want this, then why should we hold back? There is no other woman in the world that I would love more, and therefore, there is no one I would like more. But you know it's wrong." She realized that her mother likes to say it out loud, and it also turns her on. Additionally, who defines the boundaries of what is right? She thinks she is not the first, and she won't be the last. She really likes her docility. I have come to the conclusion that I am attracted to her. I entered her bedroom, and she teased me, saying that I was a very bad son. However, I am considering becoming a good father to my brother. I laughed, as I had wanted this for a long time. I still cannot believe that this is all real. Are you happy? We have always kept this a secret from everyone. However, I had wanted our father to be aware of our academic pursuits, and I inquired about his potential reaction. It is possible that we will never know. People have different self-perceptions. Some believe they are good, some behave in a bullying manner, and some have a high self-esteem. Others engage in self-deception, a common practice among many individuals. I have always possessed a healthy sense of self-esteem. I wanted our father to know about our studies, but I recognize that this may be impossible. Everyone has an idea of themselves, and most people think positively about themselves. Some people even behave like bullies, some have high self-esteem, and others just deceive themselves. As an adult, I strengthened my self-esteem by investing time and money in noble causes. I was born into a wealthy family, the only child with a surname that attracted attention. After the tragic death of my parents in a plane crash when I was 32, I changed my last name to a simple, typically American one, Kevin Wilson. I inherited 90% of their fortune. But let's talk about everything in order. At the age of 35, I unsuccessfully tried to build a personal life twice. I have always been a large individual, standing at 165 centimeters and weighing 110 kilograms, which was consistent with my weight during my first year of college. My height and wealth attracted women of similar stature, and while my romantic partners were also affluent, their level of wealth did not match that of my parents. My marriages did not endure, and I attribute this to my love for my wives being less than their love for me. It is possible that they placed a higher value on financial security than emotional intimacy. They may argue that I placed a stronger emphasis on physical attraction. In my experience, the professional aspect of relationships is often more significant than the emotional side. Following my second divorce, I frequently attended social engagements and utilized professional services, but these endeavors lacked authenticity and mutual interest. I established a charity named Help for Shoes HBS, which aimed to assist unemployed individuals in developing professional competencies. Our primary focus was on young people, and the organization swiftly achieved success through substantial investments and highly qualified personnel. Notably, only one person at HBS was aware of my role and the source of its funding. I was primarily involved in procurement, though I frequently participated in fieldwork and assisted in workshops. One of the most notable employees at HBS was Jeff Jameson, a charismatic individual with a remarkable aptitude for client engagement. His wife, Ashley, presented a stark contrast to Jeff's personality. Ash is a short, brunette with a brusque demeanor that I have never particularly favored. She appeared discourteous and somewhat self-assured. One individual within the organization was aware that I was the primary financial supporter of the initiative. I was involved in various aspects of the project, including fieldwork and assisting in workshops. Jeff Jameson was a highly regarded employee at HBS. He possessed a strong personality and excellent skills in working with our clients. His wife, Ashley, was the complete opposite. Ash is a short, brunette woman with a brusque manner that I had never particularly liked. She appeared rude, self-assured, and always ready to express her opinion. Despite this, she was devoted to Jeff, and their marriage appeared strong. During one of the corporate events, Ash was more boisterous than usual and made an unpleasant comment in response to a dance song. I found it unacceptable and said, "Ash, don't you ever get tired of being rude?" I decided to turn the situation into a joke. I raised my voice, took a couple of dance steps, and lowered it. To my surprise, instead of anger, she laughed. This changed our communication. Over time, we were able to develop a more relaxed rapport, and the quality of subsequent meetings improved. At one of the events, Ash consumed alcohol and approached me, inquiring about a gift for Jeff. The conversation took an unexpected turn, but I interpreted it as a joke and responded accordingly. Ultimately, this episode remains a humorous anecdote, and my focus remains on how I can continue to develop my life and relationships while adhering to my beliefs and values. "Okay, I'll call you," she said, then stood up. Her face took on a strange expression. She fainted. I managed to catch her so she wouldn't fall, and carried her to the couch in the alcove. I went to look for Jeff. Jeff was embarrassed, but he also drank a lot. He tried to pick it up, but dropped it. I picked her up again and said, "Jeff, would you mind if I took you home? I can give you a ride tomorrow to pick up the car." It took him a few seconds to agree, of course. "Thank you." When I took them home, I had to help Jeff. I assisted Ash in going to bed once again. He expressed his gratitude to me profusely. We exchanged contact information so that I could take him to pick up his car the following day. When I got home, I found myself unable to stop thinking about Ash. I decided to call one of my friends with whom I sometimes spent time after the divorce. Despite the late hour, she came, and it helped me to distract myself and calm down. The next morning, after my guest had left, the phone rang. It was Ash. "Hi, Kevin. Thank you for taking us home," she said with a sincere tone. "I was glad to help." I replied, "How are you feeling?" "Surprisingly well. considering the amount of alcohol you consumed. Jeff asked me to see if I could take him to get a car. I of course agreed to do so. I inquired as to when would be a good time for him. 15 minutes later, we arranged a meeting. Ash was already waiting for me at the house. We conversed during the entirety of the journey to her car. Upon arriving at the destination, she requested that we turn off the engine for a while so that she could discuss something with us. I began to fear that she would remember our conversation at the party. "Don't feign ignorance," she continued with a slight smile. "You promised to help me make Jeff a great Christmas present." "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to look innocent. "We discussed this yesterday," she replied calmly. "You said you could help me with the money." I tried to change the subject, but Ash continued confidently. She explained that her request was just a way to please Jeff and that it would remain between us. "It's just a deal," she said. "You're helping me, I'm helping you. It's simple. I will not elaborate further on the situation with any personal questions. Although the situation was indeed awkward, I did my best to maintain my composure and avoid further discussions. "Please pick me up on Tuesday at lunch. Here is my boss's business card. Call the direct number when you get to the building, and I will come right out. Thank you for the ride." She smiled, and got out of the car, heading for her car. I was like a zombie for the rest of the day. It was difficult to get rid of the thoughts, knowing that Ash was Jeff's wife, but not enough to. I was attempting to determine the source of my attraction to her. While her appearance was appealing, it did not align with my personal preferences, and her demeanor added an element of intrigue. However, I had conflicting feelings. As scheduled, I picked her up for lunch on Tuesday and we proceeded to the clinic for testing. All rapid tests yielded negative results, and the remaining results were pending, requiring a week-long wait. This consumed nearly an hour, not including the travel time. At present, we only have an hour, and I would like to receive the initial payment of $1. She stated that she was preparing to exit the vehicle. I inquired about the possibility of her changing her mind after receiving the payment. She assured me that she would not do so. I stated that I would be willing to accept $400 as payment at the time, with the remaining amount to be delivered upon completion of the service. She agreed to this proposal. We agreed to meet in a week, after the final test results were available. I decided to rent a hotel room near her office. She inquired about the possibility of using my residence, to which I explained that I had my reasons. In response to the hotel, I stated that I was not interested in broadcasting my wealth. While my personal life was modest, I drove a Toyota Prius, and my collection of vehicles included more expensive models. My house was valued at several $1,000,000, but I attempted to maintain a low profile. In reply, she gave a casual shrug. I experienced some tension over the next few days, and whenever I saw Jeff at work, I felt remorseful. An important event was approaching. We met at the Hyatt Hotel, which was a short walk from her office. We had an hour to complete everything. As we entered the elevator, she reminded us that the hotel room had been upgraded from the standard rooms. I informed her that it was a regular room. Ash appeared relaxed, but I questioned the prudence of the decision. Her behavior was enigmatic and captivating, drawing me in more and more with each moment. I sensed a blend of tension and excitement as I attempted to comprehend my sentiments. She seemed highly sensitive and emotional, and our communication deepened and became more genuine. Ash's unique blend of strength and vulnerability fascinated me. Over time, we developed a strong bond based on mutual understanding and trust. We sought to treat each other with respect, support, and inspiration. When I eventually pulled away, we were both exhausted. I turned Ash around, positioning her head on my shoulder, and we both fainted rather than falling asleep. As we began to move, I looked at my watch, grinning, and noticed that the time was 2:50. She was scheduled to return to work by 1:30 at the latest. "Oh, that was great," she replied, her smile understating the situation. I responded that the problem was that it was already 3, "That's unfortunate. It's already 3 o'clock. Bad luck." She continued to remain still. "My boss will fire me, and I really need this job." Despite her misgivings, she was in no hurry to get up and get dressed. Suddenly, I had an idea. Tell me something about your boss. Is there anything I can do to help? Ash went on to talk about Samantha Keene, an insurance company lawyer with a strict nature. Finally, I asked, is there anything she loves? Ash looked up for the first time and said, she loves dogs. She has 2 Labradors. Great. I said, thinking, let's try to solve this problem. I picked up my phone. I proceeded to dial Samantha's number, which I had been provided by the business card. Miss Keene. Miss Keene, I'm calling at the request of Ashley Jameson. She assisted the dog, which ran out into the roadway and unfortunately sustained an injury. I took her to the... I called Samantha Keene, who was working at the time. I informed her that Ashley Jameson was calling on her behalf. Ms. Jameson had assisted a dog that had run into the roadway and been injured. I took the dog to the hospital, and it is doing well. However, it will need time to recover before it can return to work. Samantha asked about the dog's well-being. I assured her that the dog was doing well and simply needed to rest. I hope you don't mind if she skips the rest of the day. Samantha expressed her concern for the dog and suggested that Ashley take the day off to rest. Samantha inquired about Ash's well-being, offering her support and suggesting that Ash take the day off if necessary. Upon completing her conversation with the boss, Ash smiled and acknowledged Samantha's assistance. They discussed the events that transpired, and Ash joked about offering her a day off the following day. Ash's actions have certainly made a positive impression. I assisted Ash with packing and then departed for home before bidding farewell. I offered Ash a neck brace as a token of my gratitude. Ash smiled and expressed her appreciation for my assistance. The next day, I took further action by sending roses and thank you letters to Ash and Samantha on behalf of the fictional owner of the dock. Ash contacted me. During lunch, she informed me that she had become a real heroine in the office. You really are something, she said, laughing. Thank you for everything. We agreed to meet again next weekend when she has the opportunity. Sounds good to me, I replied. I'll pick you up on Sunday at the same place I left you yesterday at noon, but I won't pay you this time. I don't need money for that. She laughed. I feel guilty for taking them last time. Interesting. I thought she felt guilty about the money, but not about the other side, a strange woman we met on Sunday. We set the alarm for 2. At the age of 30, I was nearing the end of my tenure with Ash's company when Jeff returned from his bowling outing. The following day, we awaited the outcome of the situation. My initial interaction with Ash occurred approximately 3 years prior, and significant changes have ensued since then. Jeff held his audio system in high regard, expressing that it was the most exceptional gift he had ever received. However, if he were aware of its acquisition method, he would consider it the most regrettable gift imaginable. Ash and I developed a close-knit relationship, with a dependency on each other. Our interactions have become frequent, occurring 3 times a week. Ash consistently met my expectations in many aspects, though certain elements of our communication were not optimal. It was challenging for her, of course. After we had been living together for about 3 months, Jeff filed for divorce and left HBS. I felt guilty and convinced Ash to give him everything that was in their joint property except for clothes and souvenirs. I had to tell her about my real financial situation and promise her a large sum to her personal account after the final divorce. I also made sure that Jeff got the job he wanted with additional bonuses. However, the consequences of this affair and its effect on Jeff have destroyed myself. Despite my contributions to the community, I found myself grappling with a sense of guilt. The dissolution of Ash and Jeff's marriage was marked by numerous disagreements, despite her consent on financial matters. Jeff became aware of my situation and disclosed it to his associates. Consequently, my professional relationship with my colleagues deteriorated, and I made the decision to leave my position at HBS, though I continued to provide financial support. I established a philanthropic organization, Best Start, which focused on supporting children from low-income backgrounds. Despite my efforts in the charitable sector, I found myself grappling with a sense of inadequacy. Despite my agreement on the financial aspects, Ash and Jeff's divorce was marked by numerous disputes. Jeff learned about my situation and disclosed it to his friends. This led to a deterioration in my relationship with my colleagues, and I ceased working at HBS, although I continued to financially support it. Shortly thereafter, I established another charity, Best Start, which focused on assisting children from low-income families. Following Jeff's discovery of the affair, Ash moved in with me. It was the most fulfilling period of my life. Despite feelings of guilt towards Jeff, I felt completely satisfied and happy. Ash and I committed to an honest and open relationship, avoiding conflict and working towards mutual respect. Ash ceased working for monetary gain and became a volunteer at Best Start. She also began engaging in charity work. We enjoyed spending time together, traveling, attending film and play premieres, and engaging in outdoor activities. Remarkably, our mutual attraction has not diminished, even after years. Each time we visited new places, we were always glad to see each other. 3 weeks ago, after a thorough discussion of our respective fantasies, we reached a consensus. The following day, Kevin Ash inquired about the nature of the agreement. I clarified that I would be willing to make the fantasy a reality. Ash expressed surprise and asked what I meant. I explained that the only way to bring it to life was if I became a mother, and that I would begin taking the necessary steps as of the following day. 3 weeks ago, after a thorough discussion, we agreed to explore the possibility of making Kevin's fantasy a reality. Kevin Ash inquired about the process. I explained that the only way to make it happen was if I became a mother. He asked if I had any objections. I replied that I was free to make my own decision, and he acknowledged that. This conversation led me to reflect on my desire for an heir, which I felt might be a sign that it was time to take the next step in my life. I am confident that I will be ready to do so in the near future.